Welcome everyone to the webinar. Today we have a webinar of huge interest, I hope, to those on the call and definitely to me, and that is what can Tesla do for fleets? My name's Daniel Hilson, I'm the CEO and founder of Energy. We're an e-mobility software and services company helping fleets transition to low carbon transport. Charged Together program is brought to you by the Electric Vehicle Council, managed by Alex Kelly and myself. It was supported by RENA, New South Wales Government, Ausgrid, NRMA and South Australian Government, and aims to accelerate the transition of fleets by reducing the transaction costs in making that migration. Along with these webinars, we have a platform called Better Fleet, which helps create business plans and a large knowledge base, as well as a LinkedIn group. Tesla has done more than any other company in our time to drive the adoption of electric vehicles. They've pushed through early adopters to make a product that has shifted from being an exciting concept to a desirable and realistic object. This is putting aside the vision of pushing EVs to a driving range that is acceptable even to the most skeptical driver. Although Teslas are still seen in some quarters as a luxury vehicle, residual values have been evidenced in recent times that might change the game to some extent. And if they can hold up along with the continued innovations in battery technology and price, we could see a dramatic shift in the amount of Teslas we see in fleets. Today we have two representatives from Tesla, James Middleton and Mitchel Baxter. James is a regional corporate sales manager, and he joined the regional leadership team in 2016, established a local presence and helped to drive this new segment across Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. He has 20 years experience in financial services and automotive industry as a senior leader and strategy consultant. And I will now hand over to James, who will present. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Daniel. And thanks everybody for having me today. Really exciting intro, and thanks for that, Daniel. So I'm just going to share my screen now, and we'll just jump into the slide deck today. Sorry, Alex, if I can just get control of the share screen there.
You should still be able to have it.
Let's try that.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, good. Sorry. Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, yeah, so just straight into our mission as a company. So never before have I worked for an organisation where the mission really is the bedrock of the culture of the organisation. I've been completely blown away here at Tesla over my time at how passionately connected to this mission people are here. I also do go back on the point that what you'll see here is Tesla's not talking about becoming just another automaker. We are about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, and the key focus there being on sustainable energy, in that we want people to view Tesla not just as another vehicle, but of course a complete ecosystem, and I'll talk more to that in a moment. Here's some of the headlines that we've had over recent times. Very, very exciting milestones in our company. I think in a very short space of time, Tesla has achieved some really great feats. You'll see one news article coverage there where our share price lifted us to over $100 billion in terms of market capitalization on the stock exchange in the US. It made us the most valuable car maker on the stock exchange ever to be listed. Previously, Ford had reached a market cap of around about 81 billion. Since then, we've far exceeded that, and we fast forward to the end of May 2020, and despite recent months, the market capitalization of Tesla is sitting around about 152 billion. Makes us the second most valuable car company in the world after, of course, Toyota. I'll never agree or deny these numbers, but I think it's fair to say that Model 3 has been an outstanding player in that $70,000 plus mid-size segment over recent times. The vehicle's only been delivered into Australia since August last year, although, despite we started to take reservations on Model 3 back in 2016, it has been a formidable player on the roads here in Australia, and I think that's led to a wider acceptance of the brand in terms of Tesla being able to compete and play in more of a mass market segment. So the timeline of Tesla is quite an interesting one. I first came into contact with Tesla personally back in 2014. I was actually had the privilege of driving a Model S on the Autobahn in Germany, and I was actually blown away by the vehicle. And fast forward a couple of years, I found myself joining the company. But here's the timeline of the company, very, very short amount of time. So we've just been around for 17 years only. Of course, the first key milestone for Tesla was the launch of the Roadster, which actually was a vehicle that was only a limited supply. 2,500 of those vehicles were built and shipped around the world. My colleague Mitch, who will join us later, was one of our founding team members for here in Australia, and it was very much around the advent of the Roadster. But we actually have 17 of those vehicles residing here in Australia, and actually one of those vehicles left the Earth's atmosphere some time back, as you may remember, as one of them was launched as a payload on a SpaceX mission. So pretty cool to see that. And in space, I think we lost contact with that vehicle somewhere off towards Mars. But anyway, fast forward to of course to the Fremont factory in 2010. So Tesla took over a plant that was previously owned by Toyota. It was meant to be a low-cost vehicle, mass-produced vehicle. So it's the only car manufacturing plant of its kind in California, and specifically outside of the state of Michigan, where is kind of very famously known for building American automobiles, but sits right in the Bay Area. It's actually a really impressive factory to go and see, primarily robotics, so vehicles that are being built by machines. And then really the key milestone for Tesla in our timeline was the Gigafactory unveil in 2014, which was going to be building more lithium-ion batteries for Tesla than all of the other lithium-ion producers in the world put together. So an amazing feat. I have actually been out to the Gigafactory in Nevada, and it is really, I would describe it as a Star Wars fan, as a bit like arriving at the Death Star in production. A really amazing site. I also got to see the Tesla Semi there as well. If we go forward to also to 2016, Model 3, opening night of Model 3, we received 116,000 reservations, and it was really considered to be the iPhone moment for the automotive industry in terms of mass uptake of an electric vehicle. It wasn't until, like I say, later in 2019 we actually saw that vehicle here in Australia, but quite remarkably in May that year of 2016 we'd received over 550,000 reservations around the world. That's people who had willingly put down $1,500 to secure a place in the queue for the Model 3. This was our master plan. I won't focus too much on it, but as you can see here, our master plan was to build a low volume, high performance sports car, which we did. And forward into 2012, we then launched the Model S. So the Model S holds some kind of pretty amazing feats to this day. 0 to 100 in 2.5 seconds. I totally appreciate that this is not going to be a fleet vehicle, but we actually had some early interest in terms of, certainly like marketing vehicles and R&D vehicles, engineering departments at universities and the likes have acquired these vehicles. But of course, the high volume play was the vehicle that I came on board to help lead Tesla's charge into the fleet space. Now, the Tesla ecosystem, as you can see here, is basically a home. So this is a residential example, but of course we aren't just residential, but commercial and utility scale in terms of our batteries and solar capability. But you can see a home here, just giving you an idea of what the Tesla ecosystem is about. So it's a vehicle connected to a Tesla charger. 2 power walls sitting there on the side of the home, and of course the solar roof tiles on the roof there. We have started installations of roof tiles in the US, and I'm not sure when the local installations go ahead, but we have got a very healthy order take of roof tiles here in Australia, and both also in New Zealand as well. Into the master plan part 2, Elon likes to have a bit of a play around every now and again, as we all know, but master plan part 2 took me some time to work out part 2 and the reference to the movie Hot Shots, which is one of Elon's favorite movies. But 4 strategic pillars of the Tesla master plan: beautiful solar and storage, which I think we've certainly achieved with both the power wall, the power pack, and the solar roof tiles as well. Expand to all major vehicle segments, self-driving vehicles that would be 10 times safer than a human-driven vehicle in terms of our autopilot and full self-driving hardware and software, and I'll talk more to those later. And finally, your car makes money for you, which will be available via the Tesla network and an autonomous fleet of Tesla robo-taxis. Into vehicle manufacturing, again, I won't talk too much about Fremont, California, but quite amazingly, in January of 2019, we broke ground in a rice paddy in Shanghai in China. 10 months later, the factory was operational and building Model 3. Those vehicles to this day are still being pumped out in big numbers over there, and they are supplying just purely the Chinese market at the moment. Right here, right now, all of our vehicles do come out of the US plant, in fact, in Fremont. This was phase 1 completion of the Gigafactory 1 in Sparks, Nevada. I think you can get an idea of the sheer scale of this factory. It is going to be the biggest factory on Earth by sheer floor space. The only factory that by cubic capacity is larger is the factory at Boeing the Boeing factory in Washington State because of the head height that they need there. But the plan is to build more battery cells out of this plant than, like I said earlier, all of the other lithium-ion producers in the world combined. We also have solar and battery production in upstate New York in Buffalo. Interestingly, a town I lived in for a year. If anybody's been there, it's quite an uninteresting place, but the Gigafactories obviously brought a lot of interest to the town as well. But yeah, that's primarily where our solar roof tiles, panels, and some battery production is done there as well. And more recently, we announced also we broke ground at Berlin Brandenburg. So it's where Tesla Grohmann, so our robotics facility, will move to. And there will be an R&D center and production facility for Model Y and also for Model 3. Like I said earlier, I won't spend too much time on S, but 0 to 100 in 2.5 seconds is the fastest accelerating vehicle in the world in production. It also is the fastest car to go around the Nürburgring. Model X, this was launched in 2015. The Model X is built on pretty much the same platform as the Model S. It has the iconic Falcon wing doors. Both the Model S and the X lead in terms of EV range capability on any electric vehicle in production right now. Roadster, again, won't tell you too much about this, but going to be quite a phenomenal vehicle. If anybody saw the Jay Leno coverage of the Cybertruck this week, where Elon spoke about the Roadster, quite an exciting project. So we'll have SpaceX cold air compressed thrusters in it, and this vehicle will be the fastest car ever produced. It will do 0 to 60 miles per hour in 1.9 seconds, so making it quicker than even an off-road track car. Like I say, probably won't see too many of those around. Now, Cybertruck, very much a polarizing design on this vehicle, I appreciate, and I know a lot of people tuned into the Cybertruck. I think it's fair to say that it caught even most of us at Tesla a bit off guard in terms of its design, but I've really grown to like it as a lover of utility, dual cab utility vehicles. But interestingly, this truck has been very, very well kind of received in Australia, despite what most people are saying about the design and the look of the truck. You can see the internal configuration of the vehicle, so 6-seater. We do expect the vehicle to go on sale here, not much different to the Model 3 price point as the base model. And of course, we'll go up from a single motor to a dual motor, and also the top of the range will be a tri-motor. I think it's fair to say that it's going to be a number of years before we see that truck, however, here in Australia. What surprises people when we say this is that the second highest per capita uptake of this vehicle after the US is actually here in Australia. So as far as the adoption is concerned, we've got a lot of people that are very interested in this vehicle. The Semi, yes, we are, like I said, expanding 2 major vehicle segments. So I have seen the Semi a number of years ago. The demand for this truck is going to be quite substantial in North America. And I think it will be quite some time before we see the truck here in Australia because of the demand there from customers. There's also a unique charging requirement for commercial scale vehicles that's going to be required, and Mitchel will touch on that later. Model 3, this is what we consider really as the fleet car. Why is it considered the fleet car? Because around the world, fortunately, in a lot of markets, there is a lot of subsidisation around electric vehicles, as we all know, and this vehicle has really been brought into a price point of a conventional fleet vehicle, the standard range vehicle. So currently, due to foreign exchange rate and local taxes, this vehicle sits at around about $76,000 drive away in the ACT and up. That is the base model. It has 460 kilometres of NEDC range and goes up to 620 kilometres of range for the long range variant. The Model Y, so again, built on a very similar platform. Our millionth vehicle to come off the production line was a Model Y a number of months ago. So this vehicle has gone into production in California a lot ahead of time than most people anticipated. All of the teardown reports and the auto journalist reports have been really blown away on this. We'll have a slight premium being an SUV over and above the Model 3, but you know, it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal vehicle when it arrives here. I can't sit here and speculate today in terms of timelines due to the recent issues with COVID-19, but fortunately, with the US deliveries occurring as we speak, we're usually about 12 to 18 months sitting behind that, so hopefully not too long to wait for Model Y. The other thing I should just quickly tell you about Model 3 and Model Y, we do have an Australian that leads the programs for those globally, so very much the Australian mindset and the Australian buyer in mind. Just to talk about safety, I always appreciate that for most fleet buyers, or for every fleet buyer, safety is very much the front of mind. And we're pleased to tell you that the vehicle is very comfortably a 5-star ANCAP safety rated vehicle, being Model 3. You can see the rigid structure of the chassis there. It is the lowest probability of injury of any vehicle that's ever been road tested in the US. So as a result of that, both Model 3 or Model 3, Model S and Model X comfortably sit in first, second and third place as the safest vehicles ever road tested in the US, and also quite comfortably here in Australia as well. Tesla's pretty unique in terms of the approach to the way that we sell vehicles. We don't operate through franchise dealer network. We do sell all online. However, we do have what we call our stores. We occasionally do pop-up displays in shopping centres, high traffic centres like Chadstone Shopping Centre and Martin Place. The view is basically you can go in there for a test drive and a consultation with a vehicle, but there's no hard sell when people go in there. And for fleet buyers, we have got some off-menu ordering via purchase order, but it is actually conveniently all done online. So there's no need to negotiate with a franchise dealer or anything like that. You're not going to see, you know, 20 of these sitting around Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, etc. They are supposed to be high retail foot traffic. And some of you may recall that we also motioned to close a number of stores last year because we determined that we didn't actually need the volume of coverage that the stores were offering. So the online experience is pretty unique. You can order a vehicle in under 2 minutes if you know the configuration that you're looking for and you've got all the ordering details. For fleet buyers specifically, we don't require the order fee because that inevitably or usually has to be refunded back as a result of leasing requirements and the ATO. But yeah, you are able to quote a vehicle online. I should also say, because we don't operate through a franchise dealer network, there's no further negotiation on pricing. We do also list our inventory of vehicles, so both used and demo vehicles online as well. So you'll be able to see those and order them online as well. Again, front of mind for a lot of fleet buyers is also the service centres. There is no fixed service schedule for a Tesla, so you don't need to bring it in to keep the warranty intact every 20,000 kilometres. It's far more ad hoc to that. Yes, there is general maintenance that's required on things like the tyres, the brakes, etc. But I should just also mention that a set of brake pads on a Tesla should last somewhere between 100 and 130,000 kilometres in conventional use. So it's quite amazing. Certainly for mobile techs, we can do an over-the-air diagnostic on a vehicle. Many fixes can be done via over-the-air technology through software and firmware updates to the vehicle. But we do have a mobile tech fleet that's going around Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth now. We've also just introduced a service centre in Canberra as well. 80% of the vehicle can actually be repaired on site, so we can do the over-the-air diagnostics and attend to the vehicle. For anybody in a regional area, what we do is regional coverage. So, for example, just a couple of weeks ago, our mobile tech was down in Tasmania, deployed from Melbourne, and takes an inventory of parts down with them, and they can repair the vehicle curbside. So, whether it be at your offices or the driver's home, the vehicles are covered by National Roadside Assistance 24/7 as well. So, if in need, can be towed back to the nearest service centre. Vehicles are connected, highly connected vehicle, the most connected car on the planet. You can see a feature there, smart summon. So vehicle needs to be within 120 metres of eye shot, but you can summon the vehicle directly to you. Yes, you can do that here in Australia, but it has to be on private roads. Also through the online app, or sorry, the mobile app, you can lock and unlock the vehicle remotely. You can activate certain features. You can see the state of charge. You can start and stop charging. And also you can see the GPS location of the vehicle. A fleet manager can have multiple vehicles on their app, and we can have primary and secondary users on the app as well. So multiple people can actually control and access the app. It does have to be one central email address to do that though. We also have a fleet API. So we have a number of customers, commercial customers that are working with the fleet API at the moment and looking at integration. What the fleet API does is it provides control and functionality to the vehicle via an API. So it does need to be a third-party developed app. We won't provide the API agreement to a software developer, for example, but we certainly will provide it to a fleet buyer, and they can, of course, engage with a third-party app developer. Applications that you might want to look at and consider with a Model 3, certainly, and when we get Model Y, would be a pool vehicle booking app. And if you bolted on an e-commerce platform, you could quite easily see, a car share type application there for it as well. But you also can enable your over-the-air updates to the vehicle. Into Autopilot. So Autopilot is standard feature on all of our vehicles. So we have Autopilot 2 hardware that was fitted to all vehicles from October 2017 as standard. We are completely uncompromising when it comes to safety. If there is a safety feature or a patch we can make to the vehicle that makes the vehicle even safer, we will do so. It's Tesla's pillar to do so. And I should also just make point here when Daniel mentioned about residual values. One of the key contributors to preservation of strong residual values on a Tesla product is, of course, the fact that the car improves over time. So not only does the features, the entertainment features of the vehicle, things like Netflix and the like, improve over time, the safety features of the vehicle are also enhanced. Full self-driving is a different option, and it can be selected pre-delivery and post-delivery. You may have seen some recent coverage that the price point of full self-driving increased, and that is a point that Elon made a number of years ago about the fact that as the vehicle becomes progressively more autonomous, this will bring value to the owner of the vehicle, and as a result of that, the software patches we send to the vehicle will increase in price over time as well. But the differentiator between Autopilot and full self-driving is the functionality that takes the vehicle towards complete autonomy. And as I mentioned earlier, Autopilot 2 hardware is what we deem to be all of the hardware that's required on the vehicle to make the vehicle completely self-driving. If you jump on our website, you will see a couple of videos of vehicles with human occupant in the driver's seat. However, there's no human touch and interaction between the point-to-point travel of the vehicle. And we've been able to do that with the vehicle for a number of years, for even the Model S and the X. Finally, the Tesla network. So many of you have probably heard about Tesla's play in the space of robo-taxis. So we will have the Tesla network. I don't have a timeline on this, but the vision is basically, and to Mitch's point that will follow, when the vehicle is left idle 80% of the time, it could be released into a rideshare platform that would generate income for the owner of the vehicle. So what it's likely to see in the future is consortiums of buyers coming together and buying a fleet of Teslas and releasing them onto the Tesla network. I should also just make point that that you will only be able to operate a Tesla on the Tesla network, and also you will only be able to operate an autonomous Tesla on the Tesla network and not third-party networks as well. Just a couple of quick case studies as well. Just wanted to share with you. So this was a testimonial from Matthew Peterson and Pierre Peterson, who have a fleet of Teslas on HC plates operations in both Melbourne and Sydney. The point that we wanted to bring here was the capability of the battery. There's a lot of myths around battery changeover and battery degradation. Our batteries are just progressively getting better and better over time. Some of you may have read that we are working to construct and put into vehicles a battery that can do quite comfortably 1.6 million kilometres and retain 70% of its original capacity. So the old myths around hybrid technology, where you need to costly replace a battery every 40, 50,000 kilometres, is not the case with a Tesla. And to back that up, we have a case in example here of a fleet that's done over 2 million kilometres and counting, 2.3 to be exact, and very comfortably sitting at minimal battery degradation in terms of capacity. There's a couple of big taxi fleets around the world. 200 went into Dubai at the airport. We also had a recent order from a German brand. You can see there on the left, who through their Free Now taxi mobility app acquired 50 Model 3s to put onto that platform, which I think was a real real compliment to the vehicle and the technology. We don't have any of these large taxi fleets here in Australia at the moment, but certainly hope to see those in the future. Quite interestingly, Victoria Police acquired a Model X probably about 18 months ago. It was very, very well received by the public. Of course, this takes takes their fleet into the new realms of electric vehicles, and some of the tech that they're looking to integrate with features like our dash cam and sentry mode were of great interest to Victoria Police. We've also got a Model 3 that's been fitted out there. It was done for a conference sitting at the end of the Tullamarine runway there with the fire fleet. And also we've got a case and example out of the US, and yeah, it's not unusual to now see Tesla as a police vehicle. I wouldn't say this was a segment we're hard chasing at this stage, but certainly seems to be a huge adoption of our technology in police fleets, and some great fuel savings as a result of that. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, Electric reported on 7 Tesla Model 3 Performance actually going into the Thai police fleet. Local fleet adoption. So Yarra Valley Water acquired a Model 3 to sit under one of their carports there alongside a couple of other EVs and plug-in hybrid EVs there. So we were delighted to see that charging off a solar port roof. And also a couple of vehicles up at Darwin. So I know there'll be some questions around regional coverage of Tesla, but 2 vehicles sitting in Darwin, and the owners of those vehicles very, very happy with those vehicles up there. So they're being used in a pool fleet context at the moment, and looking at other expansion opportunities of those vehicles at this stage. So that's it for me, and now I'll hand over to Mitch.
Great, thanks James. Hope everyone can hear me okay. This is a bit of an introductory slide, I guess. These are kind of the 3 pillars that me and my team build our work off. The most important probably is the one on the left there, charging when parked. As James alluded to earlier in his presentation, we find that our vehicles, and it's probably not unique, I think most models and manufacturers would be the same, that they're parked well over 20 hours a day. And the beauty of an electric vehicle is that you can be refueling it while it's parked. So we highly recommend installing a Tesla wall connector, which is what you can see on the right-hand side of that picture there, either at the workplace or the home of the individual driving it, or ideally both. That way your car's always got a full tank, a full battery, whenever you are ready to go for a drive. The next most important would probably be charging at destination. Oh, sorry, James is driving. Charging at destination, where we install the Tesla wall connector at convenient locations around town, like secure car parking garages, shopping centres, hotels, locations of that nature, allowing you to charge when you get to where you're going. The final point is actually the one that most people probably know best, and is kind of, I guess, our halo product, charging on the road, is our supercharger. We find that, you know, while that's a super important part of the ownership journey, that the first two, the AC charging throughout, you know, your workday life is much more convenient for most people. Next one now, please, James. Great. I thought I'd just start with a few of the basics of charging and terms you may have heard, so that you all hopefully get a bit of better understanding of how it works. So AC charging, which is alternating current, is the standard method of charging. That would have been the first 2 points on the previous slide. Basically, that's the standard power you have at your home or your workplace. And it's a very low cost, easy to install device, or sometimes it's even just a cable which you can install and charge from a power point off. And this would be your general method of charging. With this way, the charge speed is dependent on the onboard charger in the vehicle. We give you an 11 kilowatt charger, which would charge a Model 3 in about 5 hours. So you'd be able to easily fully charge your vehicle in a workday or overnight if you're charging at home. DC charging is the higher power version, and that would be something like a Tesla supercharger. Fantastic if you've been running around all day and need a quick top up, or if you're on a long journey going interstate or something like that. Much higher capital cost to set up, and it's not something that you'd have at home. Probably not even needed at a workplace if as a normal, you know, business where vehicles are charging for a long period of time. Next slide, please, James. This is a question I get pretty regularly, that there are a variety of different plugs out there, and people are kind of worried that they'll, you know, depending how old you are, buy the beta rather than the VHS, or the HD DVD rather than Blu-ray kind of thing. SAE J1772, or Type 1 on the far left there, was what the very first EVs that came to Australia had. It's still widely used in the US and Japan, where they only have a single phase grid, at least at a residential level. You won't really see too many of those charging stations around now, and you shouldn't really see very many vehicles getting imported with that standard. The Type 2 or Menikes connector on the left, second from the left, has become pretty much the standard for all other manufacturers, and has been the standard for Tesla ever since we started bringing cars to Australia back in 2014. This is also the standard in Europe and many parts of Asia, where a three-phase grid is very common. So there are your two AC options. As I said, Type 2 is really what you'll see. So if you're buying a Tesla or most other vehicles, that'll keep you charged. The DC options on the right-hand side there are slightly different. Our Model S and X still use that Type 2, but they also have an adapter to both of those stations. Our Model 3 will charge natively from the CCS2 and be able to use an adapter for CHAdeMO. So Tesla vehicles are able to charge from any of the plugs you see here, which is great. The SAE combo, or CCS2, is becoming the standard throughout Australia, and our superchargers now also have that plug. And this has become the standard similar to the Type 2 throughout Europe. The CHAdeMO on the far right is very popular with Japanese vehicles. All of our vehicles have an adapter to it, but isn't super popular in Australia. But if you find a station with that, you'll definitely be able to charge your Tesla. Next slide, please. So our Tesla wall connector, I'd spoken briefly about it before. This is our standard AC charging solution. We provide everybody with a wall connector when they purchase one of our vehicles to install it at their home or workplace, whatever is most convenient. We also install them as part of our destination charging program at convenient locations like shopping centres, car parks, hotels, that kind of thing. And as I said before, we really aim to have these where people will be charging for long times, or encouraging vehicle owners to install them where they'll be parking for long times. As the best part about owning an electric vehicle is you don't have to go out and find a charging station or a fuel station. You can do it while your vehicle's sitting there idle. Next slide, please. This is a map of all of our locations in Australia. I wanted to actually do all of Australia, but if I zoomed out any further, you actually lose the pins. So I've just gone for the most populous areas of the East Coast through to South Australia. And as you can see, really the populous areas of Australia do have a pretty robust network, which will allow you to travel wherever you need to commonly with your Tesla. Next slide, please. Supercharger. So this is, as I said, probably the most exciting part of our charging ecosystem. When I joined back in 2014, we had 0, and we built our first site, which was exciting and challenging. And since then, we've built about 36 sites. We should be getting up over 40 by the end of this year. And from the map on the previous slide, you can see that you can drive between all the major East Coast cities. We've connected Adelaide to Melbourne to Sydney to Brisbane. Canberra also has a site. That was really our first goal. Oh, my screen has just locked because I didn't touch it long enough. Sorry. That was really our first goal, was interstate travel. People, our customers really wanted to know that they would be able to use their vehicle as they need it and be able to charge between all the major cities. So we completed that by 2017, the major interstate routes between the major capital cities. After that, we really built out the holiday destinations, so like the Snow, Canberra, those kind of things. More recently, as James alluded to with the launch of our Model 3, we've had quite a number of customers in the major cities in apartment blocks, where us and many other people are coming up with solutions. But if you're renting, own a terrace house, have a difficult body corporate, there can be challenges around charging at home. So we're deploying more and more superchargers throughout cities. We've just opened one in Sydney a couple of months ago and one in Melbourne about 3 months ago. And we have plans to open sites in Perth and Brisbane within the next 3 months. So the urban or the city supercharging network you'll see grow pretty strongly over the next 12 months or so. It's been a really interesting journey with the superchargers. When I first started, I was kind of told by head office that, look, it's challenging. It'll probably take you 6 months to get one built, and you'll have to plan ahead, which is true for most other places in the world. Australia is actually one of the most difficult places, if not the most difficult place in the world, to get a new transformer, which is what's required for super high powered DC charging. So I quickly learned that 6 month indication was actually more like 18 months for us. So that was a bit of a learning curve. And where other parts of the world a transformer is supplied for free, it can often cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in Australia. So it's taken me quite some time to, come to grips with this and also communicate this through to head office, which is why, you don't see us installing thousands of these a year, and why you don't see other charging networks, rapidly expanding into Australia. It's a very big decision to build a fast charging station throughout Australia. So, our network of 36 is certainly the largest out there by quite some margin. And I guess the biggest advantage of purchasing a Tesla is that our superchargers will only charge Tesla vehicles. So if you're to become a Model 3 owner, you have a greater ability to travel than other electric vehicles. Next slide. And then this is just a bit of an overview on how supercharging works. We've made it really simple. If you were to, say, live in Melbourne and be travelling up to Canberra, all you do is you put your destination into the navigation screen, and it will direct you through our superchargers to your destination, and it'll even give you an idea of what your travel time will be, including charging stops and how long those charging stops will be. So it makes it really easy when you're kind of thinking, oh, where do I want to have lunch, or where do I want to have a quick break? It'll tell you that maybe the first stop's 15 minutes, so it's just a bathroom and a coffee. The second stop will be 25 minutes, and then maybe you plan on that for your lunch stop. As it says, about 30 minutes for half a charge, which would get you kind of, depending on model, 200 to 400 kilometers, so a pretty decent amount of time. And the Tesla app, which James spoke about, will notify you when your vehicle's ready to go, which is the funny thing that we find, that people, assume that charging stop would be difficult and you'd be waiting around. But as you have a little bit of time to kill, you're more likely to, eat in a nice cafe rather than, fast food or, a petrol station cafe. So our owners are often surprised that they get a notification saying, hey, your car's ready to go, while they're, finishing up their coffee or something. Next slide. Great. My last few slides are about universal or generic charging options. There are a few other networks out there that have started deploying AC charging stations, which is great. This photo here is at the Woolworths at Crow's Nest, which is about a kilometre down the road from me. And you do see a few cars, Teslas down there every now and again. I guess the one thing you have to keep in mind is that for these other charging stations, you sometimes have to bring your own cable, which we can sell to you through our service department, or the other charging providers will provide them. And you'll also need either an app or an RFID tag to initiate it, where our Tesla destination chargers and superchargers will work seamlessly. You just got to remember that with these third-party stations that there will be an authentication through an app or an ID. Next slide. Fast charging stations, so these would be comparative to our superchargers. Similar to AC charging, a few different networks have started to deploy these. Still don't quite have the interstate routes up and running. I think their plan is to kind of have that done within the next 12 to 18 months. But again, as long as you have the app or the RFID tag, you're able to use them. As I said in my first slides, Teslas are able to charge from all the commonly used plugs. So if there is one that you wanted to use, you'll certainly be able to use it, but just not quite as fully fledged of a network as our Tesla superchargers just yet. Next slide. So in order to find these other stations, you go to plugshare.com. That's a common, I guess, plug finding website. Our Tesla sites are listed on there as well. But on the right-hand side there, I think I filtered out the Tesla ones. So this is the network of other charging stations out there. I guess one thing to be wary of is that there's different charging speeds. A lot of those ones you'll see there will be 50 kilowatts. So that's probably an hour to an hour and a half charge, whereas our Tesla superchargers at 120 kilowatts are more like that 30 to 45 minute charge. But depending on your journey, that may or may not be a concern. Great, well, that's it for me. And it looks like there's been a few questions popping through. So I think me and James are more than happy to answer what we can.
Great, thank you very much for that. That was really good, guys. I really appreciate it. A lot of good information covered. Yeah, look, there's some questions coming through. You might be able to see them, but I'll just throw them over to you. And if people want to add additional questions, please go ahead. So cool. We'll start with, look, there's obviously in this kind of forum, there's going to be a lot of pricing questions. But maybe you just want to address them all at once. What is the sort of the pathway towards, next year, 2 years, 3 years, as people kind of get into this space as fleets? What is the pathway or the expectation that you see in that kind of cost walk?
Yeah, sure. Look, the commitment that Elon's been, very vocal about is the continuation of the objective to bring the cost of our battery packs down. As most people looking into the space of EVs will know that a significant amount of the cost is in the actual cost of the battery, and hence the Tesla Gigafactory and why that's so important to us, or the expansion of the Gigafactory network. You probably recently heard Elon also talking about a Terafactory and the plans for building the Semi and the Cybertruck there. Look, I mean, having additional production capability in places like China and also in Europe that ease up demand on the US manufacturing as well is going to contribute to that. So less shipping, but one of the other components to that, of course, is the availability of used vehicles. What we find, unfortunately, for people looking for a lower price point is, occasionally Model 3s do come up at a lower price point if they're traded in with us. Bearing in mind we've only been delivering them for 6-8 months now, but they do pop up, but they also hold their value exceptionally well, and in terms of residual value. So the new cost of the vehicle, like I say, there are definitely plans in the winds to try and bring the cost down. Of course, that would be heavily aided by any sort of government incentive or subsidy that we could achieve here. But we can only do so much so quickly, I think is the reality. And I, like anybody else, would like to see the price point of our cars a lot lower to get them into that kind of, certainly sub 60K kind of price point bracket. But right now we have a very healthy uptake of our our product at the price point it sits at. Yeah, it's a very difficult, complex topic to really kind of unravel on. But yeah, there's a hard commitment to bring the cost of our products down, and also build out to different segments, so smaller segments of the vehicles. But of course, what you do with that is you probably dial down some of the features of the vehicle, including some of the entertainment facilities on the vehicle as well. So it's all very much key to two factors, I think, or two factors as far as we control them, which is scale up of manufacturing. Of course, there's cost to doing that, R&D, and of course, bring the cost of the battery packs down as well.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I guess just related to that quickly, just to round off on pricing, yeah, the residual value is kind of quite a big issue, obviously, in the TCO for fleets, as a lot of people do or don't understand it. I mean, obviously you do have financing, I believe. I mean, is there a way for you to, have you gone through ways to package in that residual sort of guarantees to make it more affordable on a monthly basis, or any other structures for fleets that could work?
Yeah, we had a couple of things. We had a buyback program in the early days. I think it was kind of somewhat premature to market, so that was obviously underpinning the residual value position of the vehicle. We have more recently moved away from those types of programs. The biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges we have around residual values, is about 93% of all Teslas are traded in with us. So they actually come back through our used car portal. So that means that there isn't a lot of third-party data out there to be able to verify in a local context what, you know, the residual value performance of our vehicles are. That's combined with the fact that, like I say, people hold on to vehicles a lot longer, certainly electric vehicles generally, but certainly with Teslas, they're holding on to them for a lot longer. And that's primarily, based upon the fact that we have an 8-year unlimited kilometre warranty, or that's certainly the case on Model S, 160,000 kilometre warranty on the battery pack and the drive unit for Model 3. The fact that the car constantly is learning and improving, both from a features functionality point of view, but also from a safety point of view, and also the demand, and then finally the low cost of ongoing maintenance. It's very hard to package that up into a program of such. The other just quick point I just want to make on that as well is also the different ownership type models. So people are probably familiar that in the US we have been working on a subscription-based service as well. So trying to give more people accessibility to our products. I think it's a combination of all of the above, and also I think it's a combination of some very willing participants at, say, the leasing companies, risk managers, putting stronger residual values. But hard, I completely understand, coming from that background, it's very hard to substantiate something you don't have data on. So it's going to be a topical conversation for some time to come, for sure.
Great. And I guess on the charging side, I mean, maybe we just sort of try to summarize a bunch of these in terms of, you know, what's your expectation about, well, there's a couple about opening up the network, which I think you've already answered as a no. And then I guess, interested in just how you see charging at a depot, or some, the way you might get set up at that level. There's a question around icing. So, are you experiencing Tesla drivers, I guess, essentially? Yeah. So there's a couple of different ones there from the charging side. And then finally, cool. 22 kilowatt versus 50 kilowatt chargers in small towns. Which one should they do? A bunch of them all.
Cool. Yeah, I've got the chat open, so I'll try to answer a few of those ones. I guess I'll go bottom up, because that's just easier for me. So the 22 versus 50s, actually a really good question. I love that it's a little bit of a technical one. I guess the biggest disadvantage of the 22 kilowatt would be an AC charging station. And if you'll recall on my AC versus DC slide, that AC charging is dependent on the vehicle's onboard charger. So not all vehicles will charge at 22 kilowatts. In fact, even a lot of Teslas won't charge at 22 kilowatts. Our Model S and X, the premium vehicles, have a 16.5 kilowatt charger. Model 3 has 11. So it's actually more of a question of kind of X kilowatts versus 50. Teslas typically tends to kind of lead the market in that aspect. So, if you take some of our competitors, they may only have a 7 kilowatt charger. So we could be getting into the realms of, 5 to 7 times charging speed difference. So 50 kilowatt chargers are certainly going to charge a vehicle much, much faster. But I guess the cost is also prohibitive depending on who's managing it. It's probably, you know, a $5,000 versus $50,000 installation. The icing question from Dean, it's a great question. So what Tesla has done, and I don't believe others have implemented this, but what Tesla has done is we have what we call idle fees. So once your car is fully charged, you'll get a notification through the app letting you know that your car is fully charged and you have 5 minutes to move it. If you don't move your car, you're charged an amount of money. It actually depends on how many other cars are there, but it's around about $1 a minute. So it's significant enough for people to, you know, to actively move their vehicle. So it's not a big concern of vehicles being fully charged and remaining plugged in, because we have that that disincentive of cost. I guess the last one, which is not actually charging, but I'll answer it because I'm talking, was battery recycling. We actually have a battery recycling plant in Tonsley in Adelaide. And there's also battery recycling at our Gigafactory at head office. So there's a couple of different ways that we're able to recycle batteries. But as James alluded to, we have an 8-year warranty on them, and we're pretty confident that they'll survive. Our oldest vehicles are kind of just coming into that 8 years now. So to date, it hasn't really been done much, but I assume it will be done in the future, as a probably very vague answer to your question.
And look, I'm not sure whether you're in a position to answer this, but when you sort of look at the ecosystem around orchestration, we had AGL last week talking about that, and vehicle to grid and how that might play into a depot environment. Do you have any sort of about the Tesla sort of ecosystem there? You've obviously got the API, so I assume there's some control capability through that API. What's your thinking in that space?
Yeah, look, right now, Tesla hasn't announced anything in regards to vehicle to grid, so I might just talk a little bit more generally EV. It's a really interesting opportunity, especially as grids get smarter and cars get smarter, that you'll have options to potentially charge when rates are low and discharge when rates are high, which is essentially what our Tesla Powerwall does. So we already have the technology to do that. We just copy, I guess, our Powerwall technology. The challenge, I guess, is unless you're constantly monitoring it, you may not have as much charge as you think. If there was a really high price event, your vehicle may choose not to charge during the day, or it may be discharging to the grid during the day, and you'll get in ready to go home or go to work, and you'll have $100 in your bank account, but no energy in your car. So those are the kind of challenges that I guess still need to be worked through. For now, I think our Powerwall is the best option for grid management arbitrage. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what Tesla and other manufacturers do in due course.
And there's a question here around the intention to have any light commercial vehicles. Is there any sort of view to entering that space as you diversify?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go back to one of the strategic pillars in the master plan part there, and that's obviously to expand to all major vehicle segments. I think it's fair to say that the Cybertruck is that kind of full F-150 size dual cab utility. Elon actually alluded the other night to the fact that there would probably be a smaller ute at some point in time. But I think it's fair to say we've got kind of enough to work on at the moment with Model Y and getting that out globally, and also semi-roadster for the kind of higher end sports car buyer, and then also the Cybertruck. The next biggest challenge, like I said, is actually finding a facility to actually build the semi and the Cybertruck. So whether that will be a purely dedicated facility, I'm not sure for commercial vehicles. But look, absolutely, I don't see it that we wouldn't venture into that space, but right here, right now, passenger vehicles is our thing, and like I say, moving into the commercial space is another new, interesting but exciting challenge for us. So never say never at Tesla, as I've learned.
And always find out from Elon directly first through the media.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, I guess one last question. I'm really intrigued by this, car sharing concept, whether it's autonomous or not for fleets, because obviously the idea if you can utilize these vehicles after hours, on weekends, really changes the game in terms of the business case, but also brings with it insurance and other issues. Is there kind of examples of this happening around the world? Is it something that is alive, or is it sort of a potential are you looking at in Australia? Just to cut to the chase, we do have councils who are trying to figure that out. So it's definitely a big issue.
Yeah. Look, yeah, like I said earlier, very unique approach to ownership models, I think, is the order of the day. I mean, I actually joined Tesla, you know, as excited as I was about the vehicles itself, but coming from a fleet kind of financial services asset finance background, I was quite interested around the whole, you know, mobility space in particular. So yeah, I look, absolutely, you've seen the kind of the play around the Tesla network. Our vehicles are being adopted around the world on, you know, your typical kind of car share, point-to-point, peer-to-peer kind of platforms. We've got a number of those examples here in Australia. I think Australia offers a really unique kind of position for us as a market. The first kind of play in that is that fleet API that I mentioned earlier, and the interface with third parties. We haven't got any plays, and I can tell you now, again, never say never, but you know, we haven't got any direct plays in the subscription space or anything like that planned here and now. But we'd be very keen to work with councils, like I say, around that API piece and the development of third-party software to do so. But I think just quickly drawing back as well, I just did some analysis the other day around kind of private ownership versus, you know, kind of fleet ownership. We can see from the VFAX report that, you know, kind of business fleet registrations are increasing on the up and have been consistently for a number of years. I think we've seen 100,000 unit drop, obviously, in the retail space over recent times. So I think the move towards business fleet ownership and the multi-modal application of mobility is going to be a really interesting one, and how to actually turn a vehicle into, you know, an asset that costs you into an asset that actually makes money for you. It's a really interesting piece of the puzzle that we're going to have to solve in the future. So.
Right. Okay. Look, I mean, we're coming to the end. I think there's just one more question around how many Teslas there are. I think there was something in one of the slides. Was it 7,000? I know that you're tentative on that, but
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic. You probably see, whilst we are a member of the FCAI, we don't actually report our figures on VFAX, so I won't confirm or deny that news article earlier in the slides, which you will see online, but it's a healthy number. Yeah, we're certainly competitive in the segments of the market we're playing with, so I can't give you a firm number, but if you look at our global, and the sole reason for that is we report our sales and delivery figures at a global level, not at a market level. But it's healthy. Let's just say we're a healthy player in those segments now. Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated. And as I said up front, you know, it's fantastic what Tesla's done for this industry and the segment, and making it a reality all around the world. And fantastic sales results, and yeah, just a really great story. So thanks again for attending, and thank you everyone for attending. We have some great webinars coming up. Hyundai, just to be fair, is coming up soon, and others. So really looking forward to those, and thanks to the Electric Vehicle Council and also the different funders like Ausgrid, Marina, New South Wales Government, and the South Australian Government for helping us to build this program. And yeah, please keep coming, and please let other people know if you're getting value out of it. Spread the word and get people to sign up at www.chargetogether.org, and subscribe to our LinkedIn page as well. So thank you very much, and have a great day.